The lights
We
of
stand here
America's
tonight
Got
not just as
Talent
individuals, but as a
2025
united
burned
force,
bright as
ready to
thousands
embrace
of
the
eyes
challenges
fixed
ahead
on
with
the
courage and
stage. But
determination.
among the hopeful faces backstage stood a man who looked different from the rest. His name was Miguel Santiago, a Filipino army soldier who had traveled thousands of miles from his homeland, carrying not just a dream but the weight of years spent in uniform. His boots were polished, his posture disciplined, yet his eyes revealed a quiet storm. This was not a man chasing fame. This was a man answering a promise he once made under the sound of gunfire and fear. Miguel grew up in a small coastal village in the Philippines where life was simple but unforgiving. His father was a fisherman who taught him discipline and honesty, and his mother sang lullabies every night, her voice echoing through their wooden home as waves crashed nearby. Music was Miguel's first comfort. He sang not because he dreamed of a stage, but because it was the only way he knew how to feel safe. When his father died during a storm at sea, Miguel was only 13. Overnight, childhood ended. Responsibility replaced dreams. To support his family, Miguel joined the Philippine Army at 18. It was a decision born from duty, not desire. He left behind his mother, his younger sister, and the guitar he used to strum quietly at night. Military life was harsh. Training was brutal, and missions were unforgiving. Miguel learned how to survive, how to obey, and how to bury emotions deep inside. Yet even in remote camps, when the nights were quiet, he would hum melodies to himself, songs that reminded him of home. Years passed, and Miguel was deployed to conflict zones where danger was constant and fear was familiar. He witnessed loss that haunted his sleep. Friends he laughed with during meals were gone in moments. Each loss carved something out of him. Singing became his secret escape. In abandoned barracks or under the stars, he sang softly, sometimes crying, sometimes smiling, holding onto the only piece of himself that war could not steal. One night, after a devastating mission where Miguel narrowly survived an explosion, he sat alone, shaking, convinced he wouldn't see another sunrise. He sang quietly, not for hope, but for survival. Another soldier overheard him and stood frozen, tears rolling down his face. Word spread through the unit about the soldier who sang like he was telling a story of every pain they shared. Miguel didn't know it then, but that moment would change his life. After years of service, Miguel returned home with scars that could not be seen. He struggled to adjust to civilian life. Crowded places made him anxious, loud noises brought flashbacks, and sleep rarely came easily. His mother noticed how he would sit alone at night, staring into nothing. One evening, she asked him to sing like he used to. His voice cracked, but as he sang, something inside him healed just a little. A local charity event invited Miguel to perform for veterans and families. He almost refused. Standing on a stage terrified him more than any battlefield ever had. But when he sang, the audience fell silent, many openly crying. People told him his voice carried truth, pain, and hope all at once. Someone recorded the performance and uploaded it online. Within weeks, millions watched it. Comments flooded in from around the world, including one message that changed everything. It was an invitation to audition for America's Got Talent. Miguel thought it was a mistake. America felt too far away, too big, too impossible. But his sister reminded him of the promise he once made to himself and to the friends he lost, that if he ever survived, he would live fully. With borrowed money, a donated plane ticket, and his uniform carefully packed, Miguel flew to the United States for the first time in his life. Standing on the AGT stage, Miguel introduced himself simply. He spoke about being a soldier, about losing friends, about music saving his life. The judges listened closely. Simon Cowell leaned forward, curious but skeptical. He had seen thousands of singers. Another emotional story was not enough. What mattered was the voice. When the music began, Miguel closed his eyes. The song he chose was deeply personal, one he sang during his darkest nights. His voice entered softly, almost fragile, but filled with raw emotion. Every note felt lived in, as if carved from experience rather than rehearsed technique. The room changed instantly. The audience grew still. The judges' expressions shifted from polite interest to genuine shock. As Miguel reached the chorus, his voice rose with power and vulnerability, telling a story of loss, survival, and hope. It wasn't perfect. It was real. Simon Cowell's face softened. One judge wiped away tears. Another placed a hand over their heart. The song felt less like a performance and more like a confession shared with millions. Then came the twist. Halfway through the song, Miguel's voice trembled. For a brief moment, it seemed like he might break down completely. The music softened, and he paused, struggling to breathe. The audience held its breath. Simon whispered something to the other judges. This was the moment that could end everything. But instead of stopping, Miguel spoke a single line into the microphone. He said this song is for every soldier who didn't make it home. The music resumed, stronger than before. Miguel sang with everything he had left. His voice soared, filling the theater with emotion so powerful that people stood without realizing it. By the final note, the entire audience was on its feet, applauding through tears. Silence followed, heavy and emotional. Simon Cowell stood up. He didn't speak right away. When he finally did, his voice cracked. He said he had never felt something so honest on that stage before. He said Miguel didn't just sing a song, he told a truth the world needed to hear. One by one, the judges walked onto the stage and hugged him. The crowd erupted. But the story didn't end there. Backstage, Miguel collapsed into tears, overwhelmed by emotions he had suppressed for years. A producer later revealed that during rehearsals, Miguel almost quit, fearing he wasn't good enough. What no one knew was that hours before the audition, Miguel received news that one of his former comrades had taken his own life. He considered walking away, but instead chose to sing for him. The performance went viral overnight. News outlets across the world shared the story of the Filipino Army man who shocked Simon Cowell. Veterans wrote messages saying Miguel's voice helped them feel understood. Families of fallen soldiers thanked him for honoring their loved ones. His song became an anthem of healing. As the competition continued, Miguel faced new challenges. Fame brought pressure. Critics questioned whether emotion alone was enough. During the semi-finals, his voice faltered due to illness. Doubt crept back in. But once again, Miguel chose courage. He performed despite the pain, reminding everyone that strength isn't about perfection, but perseverance. In the finals, Miguel stood on stage one last time. This time, he sang not just for loss, but for hope. His voice carried a message of resilience, unity, and peace. Whether he won or not no longer mattered. He had already achieved something greater. He had turned pain into purpose. When the final votes were announced, Miguel didn't hear his name immediately. The tension was unbearable. Then, the host smiled and called him forward. Regardless of the outcome, the audience roared. Miguel bowed his head, tears falling. Overwhelmed by love from people he had never met. Miguel's journey didn't end on that stage. After AGT, he began performing for veterans, charity events, and global audiences. He used his platform to advocate for mental health awareness among soldiers. His story reminded the world that behind every uniform is a human being with dreams, fears, and a voice that deserves to be heard. Today, Miguel still wears his uniform with pride, but he also carries a microphone, using music as his weapon for change. From a small Filipino village to the biggest stage in America, his story proves that sometimes the strongest voices come from those who have endured the deepest silence. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you feel something deep inside, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful, real-life stories that touch the heart.